Good evening, Facebook. Next principle that we're here to discuss is the principle of honoring life in all forms. Because life is worth honoring, right? Life, all walks of life, any type of person from anywhere, honor and respect is essential. It's paramount, really. Because if you're going to look at another person and say that they're not worth honor or they're not worth respect, now they may have done things that are unacceptable. Yet, to look deeper at, okay, who are they really and how do we support them so that we can work through any of these errors that people make. So, what I want to bring to y'all's attention with honoring life in all forms is looking at how do we honor all life with also looking at it in a systematic way so that we're not just paying lip service to saying, oh, I honor you or I respect you. Rather, we actually really live that out. So what does honor mean? Does anyone know the definition of honor? I looked it up right before this, and it's like to respect and to esteem. Then I looked at what does respect mean? This is a big one. So respect had two definitions that I saw on Google. One definition of respect is a feeling of admiration. And the second one is due regard. Let me just make sure I have that right. It was due regard for the feelings and wishes of others. Now, we could go on and on into the definitions of due regard and what does that actually mean, but when we talk about honor, it's much more than just a feeling of admiration or a feeling of respect or anything like that. Real honor is actually looking at what does it take to fundamentally support this other person and establish a relationship between us where each party is respected, cared for, and we have what we need. And then we can actually build from that. Honor and respect is not just I feel some type of way toward this person, right? Feelings come and go, please. That's not actual honor. But real honor is actually walking side by side with that person, looking at all the BS, looking at all the issues, and then coming out on the other end stronger than ever. That's honoring life in all forms. So I'm going to read this part of what honoring life in all forms looks like, and then I'm going to tell you a little story about a very eye-opening experience I had. So honoring life in all forms, I expand my awareness and responsibility to consider and create the best possible life for everyone and everything from the large to the small. That's a loaded statement. One line. I expand my awareness, okay? Do you do things to expand your awareness? I'm not talking about like smoking pot or something. Like a lot of people think that that's like, oh, I just like expand my awareness, man. I like feel connected to the earth or something. Well, what happens when you're not high anymore? Do you still feel that honor for the earth? Right? That's a bitter pill to swallow for some people, but it's true. So really expanding your awareness is something that doesn't change, it doesn't waver. It doesn't mean you need to have some substance or you need to be in some temple or have some divine religious experience to honor life and expand that awareness. It means it's who you are. You have an expanded awareness as yourself because yourself, you, the real being, is aware. It may be covered and you may have a bunch of veils in front of you, but you are living awareness. So expand that awareness and the responsibility to consider and create the best possible life for everyone and everything from the large to the small. Well, if you can't even effectively consider what it's like to be another person, or you can't consider what it's like to go through what another person's going through, you're going to have to work on that. We have to work on actual real consideration, real regard, because that's what it means to actually honor life and support life and take responsibility for life. Now, the next part is creating the best possible life for everyone and everything. Now, sometimes people get all funny when you start talking about, oh, best life. Who knows what the best life is? Maybe what's best for you isn't best for me. And yeah, there's different things like preferences, and maybe for you it's really good for your body to eat vegetables, like green vegetables. And for someone else, they shouldn't eat green vegetables because they're allergic, and maybe they need to eat, different food to get their nutrition or whatever. Like, I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is it the best possible life when someone doesn't have food on the table Is it the best possible life when someone doesn't even know how to read and think critically? Is it the best possible life that we still have child soldiers or child sex trafficking? No. We can all agree on those basic things. So that's what I mean by best possible life, where everyone gets their basic needs met. But not just basic needs, but I'm talking about the best of the basic needs. That's what the best possible life actually looks like. Now the last part is for everyone and everything from the large to the small. So does this mean we have to also respect the plants and the animals and the rainforest and the earth and the whole ecosystem? Yeah, from the large to the small, including humans, people from all walks of life. Ensuring and taking responsibility so that it's the best outcome for all that. That's pretty cool when you look at it. That's a responsibility of epic proportions, and it is going to be the most fulfilling thing if and when you can commit to doing that, to honor life in all forms. Now, also, you might find some people, like the first time I heard this, I was like, wait, from the large to the small, what does that mean? Like, should I, if I have a mosquito biting me, like what do I do in that situation? Is it honoring life in all forms to kill that mosquito? Well, use common sense, okay? If you have ants eating away at the foundation of your house, you should get rid of the ants. Okay? But do it within self-honesty. Don't just look at it as, oh, these are just pests, but rather respect that life form. Because without ants, our whole ecosystem would be thrown off balance. Right? When you really start to look in what goes into life, it is nothing short of astounding. When you look at just how delicate the ecosystems are and things like that. But I'm not going to go on a whole rant about ecosystems and the planet here, but I want to just bring this up. This was a story that really helped me understand where I was not honoring life in all forms. So I grew up with a dog. I didn't really want to care for the dog. It was nice. I wasn't like abusive toward the dog. It was just like I would rather do different things because I was this kid who didn't want to take on responsibility. And, like the dog, but it was like whatever. And then recently, Jessica had a dog in the city, and I didn't, we would have to go take the dog on a walk, twice a day or 3 times a day. I didn't want to do that. And I'm sure many people can relate to that, of the responsibility of caring after a dog or cat or animal or whatever, or human, right? There are times, if you have a kid, where you probably don't, it's not convenient to take care of them, but it's still best to take care of them. And I noticed this point within me of I resisted taking the dog on a walk. And it's so simple. How does that have to do with anything that you didn't want to take the dog on a walk? Well, think about it like this. The way that you do anything is the way that you do everything. So if I have spitefulness and resentment toward taking the dog on a walk, even subtly, I'm taking that spitefulness and resentment toward myself, towards other people. I'm walking around with that spitefulness part of me. Because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And so I had to look at that within myself of why don't I want to take the dog on a walk? Is it annoying? Would I rather be doing other things? And eventually I had to have a conversation with Jess, and we looked at, does it make sense to have the dog here, or would the dog be happier outside the city? So it was I had to look at that first for myself and my relationship with that other life form, because a dog is a form of life. And to honor life in all forms, that means I have to take care of this thing. And then we also had to look at the bigger picture of how to long-term systematically support this life form and honor that form of life. But that's just a story and an example of, look at that in your own life. Maybe it's an animal, maybe it's a pet, maybe it's another human, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's somebody you really don't like. You think they're a bad person. What does it look like to honor them? Is there something that someone can do that's actually unforgivable? No. But it's not necessarily your position to forgive another. Rather, look at it for yourself, and whatever it is you're judging in them, you think that other person is so evil, they're so backwards, they're so screwed up. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. So if you're judging that other person for being whatever, you're casting that judgment on yourself, and you're harboring that resentment and spitefulness toward yourself on some level. And it may be a long road, and you may have actually really been wronged by another. And you don't have to forgive them, but you can look at, what does it look like to forgive yourself for accepting and allowing that to happen, and how do you correct yourself so you can ensure that that doesn't happen again. that's really honoring yourself, that's honoring the other person, and that's honoring life in all forms, because the way that you act in those situations will support you, and who you become in that will allow you to be the kind of person that's actually honoring life in all forms. And that will carry out and ripple out into the world. And that's not some magical fantasy theory that, oh, maybe it'll work. It just makes sense as I take responsibility and I honor life in all forms. And as you do it, and the other people watching the video do it. And we do this over time. That spreads one to another person. And then those 2 people spread it to 2 more people, and 2 more people, or 4 more people, 8 more people. And it grows from there. So that's how we actually change the world fundamentally. But it all starts with principles, because principles are timeless. And this is the principle of honoring life in all forms. So practice it this week. All right, everyone. Stay tuned.